I just wanted to welcome you all and say thank you so much for coming and joining us this morning. Before we begin, I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome our sponsors and say thank you to Horizon, SignatureFD, and Veritex. Also, the Atlanta Bar Association for hosting us, and also Solo Small Practice sections. And now we're going to go ahead and begin with our first section. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Ms. Baleen Reed, who will introduce our panelists.
I am not Baleen Reed.
Good morning, everyone. I am Baleen Reed, and I will be your moderator for our first panel today. I would like to welcome Joanna Smith and Nkoyo Effiong to the stage. Did I get your name right? Did I get your name right? Okay, I'm on a roll. I've gotten her name right, and it's going to be a good day. So I'm going to give kind of brief bios. They're going to know themselves way better than I do, but I want to give you guys some context. So first I want to talk about Nkoyo. She is the director of the Law Practice Management Program at the State Bar of Georgia, where she helps Georgia lawyers build profitable, purpose-filled practices with less stress. We all need less stress. And stress by leveraging innovation and the right tools. She was also the founder and former principal attorney of the Effiong firm, a boutique education and nonprofit law firm, where she partnered with families and mission-driven leaders using flat-fee and subscription models to protect legal people. She has a really long and rich history of working with great firms in Atlanta, like Aspel and Brennan and Nelson Mullins, Riley and Scarborough, representing Atlanta schools, districts, and Gangster Foundation. She later used to launch her own firm. A frequent local national speaker, writer, she is published everywhere you look. She has another publication. She regularly contributes to bar publications and equips entrepreneurs, that is not a Baleen word, with the confidence, competence, and capacity to design sustainable practices. And Nkoyo is a proud graduate of Brown University and NYU School of Law. So if we could just welcome her briefly with a little applause. Okay, and then I want to introduce Joanna Smith. I met Joanna when I was at Emory in law school, and even then it was very clear that she was a woman that started a business, okay? She knew how to start a law firm, was not afraid of it, was very affirming of like younger lawyers getting into their own firm. She did build and run her own sliding scale family law firm for the last 7 years. It is a firm that, as I found out today, has transformed into many different names, but started a firm that transformed into 2 other ones. Before becoming a lawyer, she was a doula. I thought that was a cool fun fact, so I wanted to share that with you all. And now she brings that same steady support and passion for guiding families through life-changing moments to her work handling divorce, custody, child support, mediation, protective orders, and name changes across Georgia. She is a certified domestic relations mediator and arbitrator, so rare to find good ones. If you do family law, keep her on your list. She's experienced guardian ad litem and a summa cum laude grad of American University, Woodruff Fellow, who earned both her JD and Master of Public Health from Emory. So let's welcome Joanna to the panel. Okay. So just a quick test of the room, because I want this to be as interactive as possible. How many of you all are solo practitioners? Oh, y'all came to the right place. Good job. That's great. Okay, let's gauge timelines. How many of you started your firm within the last 3 months? Woo! Good for you. How many of you started your firm within the last 6 months? Okay. Hold on here. The last year? 2 years? Okay. Yay. I'm going to start jumping. 5 years. Okay. Bigger jump here. 10 years in solo or small practice. 15 years. Woo! Okay. Love it. Okay. Just want to gauge the room, and obviously you guys are in the right place.
You guys say more than 15 years ago?
Oh, more. 15 plus. was limiting the community. I'm so sorry. Okay, so can you all, both of you, just give me a quick introduction of what you describe your current role is? Yeah.
I'll go. So thank you for that warm welcome. Greetings from the State Bar. If nobody else has greeted you, good morning. I'm glad to see you here. As Bailey mentioned, I am the director of the Law Practice Management Program. I like to believe that this is your best member benefit after the parking deck. I understand there's no competing with the parking deck, but after that is the Law Practice Management Program. And so in this program, we are the only department of the bar that is purely focused on helping you with the business side of law practice. So we like to say that we are here to help you start, scale, or sunset your law practice with less stress. And so we focus a lot on leveraging technology, streamlining processes, really helping you think about what you're designing and making sure that it actually aligns with the life that you want, so that your firm serves you versus you serving your firm. And so in my work, we put on programming. We do the Take Charge Solo and Small Firm Conference that happens annually. It will be happening this September 17th and 18th right here. We also put on virtual CLEs. We have one happening this week that's on financial management, because I don't know about you, but when I started my firm, I intended to make money. And so we try to normalize conversations around that in the profession as well. We also host a whole bunch of resources. We have a resource library, vendor directory. We are collaborating with the Standing Committee on AI and Emerging Technology and putting together an AI hub. And so if you haven't been on the website to see that, gabar.org/AI, we have spent a lot of time with ethics, et cetera, making sure that we have given some guidance for you around how you are integrating that into your practice. And then in our department, we really get into the weeds to really make sure that you're doing that effectively. And so I think ultimately, if I were clear about what it is that I do, I really try to make sure that people can design the life that they want, and they can use all the tools, specifically in this context, your legal business, to actually get to the thing that you want to do so you can experience more of life. I will land my plane right there and pass it to you, Joanna.
Thank you. So I started out of law school. I joined a family law firm, and we did not get along. And so I didn't last there very long. And one of the reasons I didn't get along with them is because I wanted to serve people that were like me. And so within a year of graduating or passing the bar, I started a law firm through the Lawyers for Equal Justice Incubator Program. It was a sliding scale family law firm. And we actually have a number of incubator participants in here. And so that was a way to launch a firm at the time with kind of innovative ways of doing practice of law. I eventually went on to run that incubator program, so you'll hear me talk about that a little bit today. I ran my law firm for about 7 years. I have a special needs son, so I left to work for other people for a couple years there, and I've just recently, as of last July, started a new law firm doing family law again. So I've been kind of at every stage of the practice, and have also helped other people start and run law firms. And so happy to talk about what it's like to start something right out of law school, if there's any people who are in that position, all the way to being, out for a long time and restarting something after you've worked for people for a while.
Okay, thank you. Before we get to more pointed kind of individualized questions, what do you both think most attorneys misunderstand about what it actually takes to launch a sustainable process? And I'm sure it might be 50 things, right? What is your number one thing that you think most attorneys misunderstand?
So I think that so we're talking about solo practices. I think what people misunderstand is that solo doesn't mean alone. You cannot actually run a practice by yourself, whether it's because you don't know how to do the finances, and so you need to take a CLE on that or consult the bar. But it's also, it's very lonely if you silo yourself off, and so you need a support system. You need mentors, you need other attorneys to bounce ideas off of, you need a website support person, you need to kind of build your team. And so solo doesn't have to mean alone or by yourself. Building that community is what's really important.
I love that. And having been a true solo, which I always tell people when they come for consultations that I highly do not recommend. Like, it is the worst way to practice all by yourself. It really does help to have support around you. And I think that what I would add to that is that building a sustainable practice really means that you have to determine for yourself what success looks like and what sustainability looks like. I think a lot of times, particularly in the way that we've been trained to practice, we look to our left and our right to help us decide whether we're on the right track or we're building the right thing. And we really need to be looking internally to figure out, what is it that I want? Like, do I want to manage a whole bunch of people? Am I actually trying to build a volume practice? And so I want to have lots and lots and lots of cases and matters, or actually do I want to be more boutique? Like, do I want to be able to be on the beach? Do I want to be hamstrung by a court's calendar? And I think that sometimes people just set out without really deciding or determining what their destination is and what it is that they actually want. And then your practice quickly becomes unsustainable because you haven't defined what it is or what you want from it. So that's, I think, one misunderstanding. You're building your own paradise or your own prison.
I don't know how I can ask questions. I'm taking too many notes. So I want to go back to Joanna. Can you tell us a little bit more? For example, for me, I don't know how many years in practice folks are. I didn't know about the incubator program until I started delving into this. Can you tell us a little bit more about that program? And then what gaps do you see new solos consistently have that law school or early practice doesn't prepare them for?
Sure. So the Lawyers for Equal Justice Incubator Program was formed in 2015 as a partnership between the 5 law schools in Georgia, the State Bar, the pro bono organizations, basically a big partnership. And it launched its first class in 2016. Basically to help younger attorneys start innovative law firms to serve the 80% of Georgians that don't qualify for free legal services but can't afford traditional representation. So we saw a lot of sliding scale firms or using flat fees or bundling or different kinds of ways of serving folks, and then doing a lot of pro bono work, and also then getting support from organizations to help us build our skills. And so, like I said, there's a number of us in this room that came out of that program. One of the things that we saw frequently is that people would come because, and I was a little bit this way too, would come to the incubator because they didn't know what else to do. Like, I'm about to start this firm and I didn't know, I don't know how to do anything. And one of the things that I saw people missing was just that management, the law firm management skills. They don't, unless you're lucky enough to go to Georgia State or another school that has a specific class on law firm management, we don't learn that in law school. Or if you went and got a business degree with your law degree, you may have learned something about business macro, but they really don't teach you how to do business on a day-to-day basis. We don't know the first thing about accounting or website design or anything like that. But the biggest thing that I think we don't learn in law school is about process design, which is really boring. But you're going to hear me talk about it several times today. Like, how do I set up a good process for intaking new clients? What is my process for opening a new case? What is my process for closing a case? And when we get into process design, it allows you to either do what Nicoya was talking about, which is spend more time on the beach, because you have good processes and you know where your cases are and you can leave them for a little while and know where to pick up or that kind of thing. But it also allows you to scale your business. If you have processes, you can bring somebody in, you can bring a new assistant in, and they know exactly what to do. So, it's the law practice management stuff, but it's specifically, I think, building processes in your firm that new solos don't realize how important it is, and they are able to scale and to get better faster if they have those process building skills.
Thank you. And Koya, whenever you answer, if you want to tag on something before you answer my question, that's totally fine too. My next question for you is, from your vantage point at the State Bar, what are the most common missteps you see new solo attorneys make in their first year, and which ones tend to cause more long-term problems?
Yeah. Well, I actually think this ties very neatly with what Joanna said, in that, and I was this way too. Like when I came out and I decided, I think I was maybe 3 years practicing at a big law firm, decided I hated it, didn't want to bill by the hour, never want to have to clock my time that way, and was just like, I'm gonna go start a firm. And I was fortunate to have someone tell me to go to the bar and get the little startup guide. So I got the little startup guide and I thumbed through it and was like, oh, checklist, and oh, you should like build the design before you start practicing. And I was like, no, I just need to get this marketing and find out and get all these clients. And then I got people calling me and I had no ability to do things with all the calls, and I quickly got overwhelmed. And so what I often see, not just from new attorneys, I mean all the way up, we see folks in our consultations either voluntarily, it's available to you at any point in time, or sometimes people are voluntold to come and see us when they find themselves on the wrong side or right on the line with discipline. And so we have seen folks who have been practicing straight out, very beginning, longer, some folks who, they're getting closer to sunsetting their law practice. And I think the same through line that I see is there's not a design. It's, I'm gonna just put this stuff up here, I'm gonna put the gas on it and hope it works out. So then I get overburdened, I have more clients than I actually have the capacity to serve, and I don't have a process to do that. I've hired a whole bunch of people, but I never really told them what I expected them to do. I just assumed that because they filled out, that they answered the job description, that they could do the thing that they said they could do the way that I wanted to, but I didn't actually communicate that to them. Or when I'm, getting started, I'm spending a whole lot of money on a fancy website or a marketing company who's doing all this marketing, but I actually don't know who my ideal client is or what problem I solve. I've just said, I'm an attorney, like I can help you do this thing. And so then they're getting leads that are not the right leads. They're spending a lot of money and they're not seeing the ROI on that, or the return on investment. And so I think the biggest thing that kind of is a through line, regardless of where you are in your practice, is not really being clear about what your systems are, how you're leveraging technology. A lot of people are like, I have Clio, I have, Practice Panther, whatever thing, and it doesn't work. Or I need something else. And it's like they actually haven't learned the tool, so they're not clear on whether it's helping them or is able to help them do the thing that they need to do. So I think what we see a lot of times, which coincides with what my colleagues over there at the Client Assistance Program see, is that folks are not communicating effectively or consistently enough with their clients, and so clients are upset. They're either not pricing themselves well, which is something I really want to talk about here in this space with you all on purpose, is making sure that especially we as women, we are actually charging what our services require, and designing in that way so that we can pay ourselves from the onset. And then, they end up with more clients than they have been paid for. And so now we get cash flow issues. We're spending out on things that maybe it doesn't make sense for us to have that $5,000 a month marketing spend when we don't know who our client is and we don't know if it's actually bringing us our ideal client. So we're not seeing the ROI on that. And so I think from the beginning piece, it's not spending enough time thinking about what you're trying to build and putting the small pieces in to build that foundation before you start scaling and putting the gas on it.
Can I
Yeah.
build on that?
Free flow.
So, yeah. So I think materials went out or are going to go out. I put in there a mission, vision, values exercise that you can literally go through. And I think this is important to do at any point in your practice. Even if you have your mission, vision, values nailed down, it's good to do the exercise every now and then, at the 1 year mark, at the 5 year mark, at the whenever, so that you can make sure that you're on track there. But like Nkoyo said, if you don't,
Nkoyo.
I'm sorry, Nkoyo, I keep saying it wrong, Nkoyo. If you don't know exactly who your ideal client is, if you don't know what your values are, then when you're making decisions, then you are going to make the wrong decisions because you don't know what you're basing them on. And so if you want to go through that exercise, that's there for you all to have.
And I'll add, we do a simple law firm playbook just on the idea that, people buy franchises because it's like a repeatable process. Like if I run the play, I should generate the revenue, et cetera. And there's a way to design your firm that way, despite whatever practice area you're in and all the complexity and nuance that's there. There are phases of the work. And so that sheet will kind of walk you through, like, what does attraction look like? How do I want clients to find me? Am I making the social media play? And so I'm figuring out how to do that. Do I want to run the SEO play? And so I'm really maximizing my website. Am I doing networking and word of mouth it's still a marketing strategy. Like you actually still have to put a process around that, referral marketing, lawyers, you still got to go out and interact with them. So like, how do I want people to find me? And then how do I want them to become a client of the firm? Like, do they have to get on a call with me to be able to see if I can serve them? And that's a sales call also. I think that was one of the things that, when I started, I just was giving out great legal information, and I was like, nobody's booking, nobody's like filling out the engagement letter. No, like that's a sales conversation, and I want us to start thinking about these as like parts of business. I think sometimes in the law, we're like, oh, we're a profession, and so we're so esteemed, like we don't do business things, we don't do sales. Like if you're running a law practice, you're in sales. You're in sales and marketing. Whether you like it or love it, like that is a huge part of the game. But also thinking about, great, so how do I do client intake? What's that process? What do I do? What do the clients do? What can technology do? Right? Because like you could have an end of sales call or a consult and push a button and it sends an engagement letter and a link for you to get paid. Easier than having to try to do that all the time or think through it every time. I know I used to stall, and then I stalled, and then those clients that were warm and hot when I was on the call stalled, and then it took longer for us to get paid and get moving. So thinking about that, thinking about what's your process for once someone is a client and you're going to communicate them with expectations. We call that onboarding. You want to make sure your clients understand how your firm works, how often you engage, and that you get to make those decisions. And then things like client management and how you offboard, how you make sure you have the reviews and testimonials that you'll want to be able to continue in your marketing cycle, how you want to keep in touch with your clients, because the best client is a repeat client, and depending on what area you're in, they might come back. And so that sheet will kind of help you think through questions to ask yourself at those stages, what you're doing, what you want your clients to do, and then also ways for you to think about what technology can actually do to help you move forward.
First note, you guys will get those materials today via email and like a Dropbox link. So you don't have it yet, but you're going to get it. I promise the checklists do exist. I want to go back to Joanna. And I know in court we're not supposed to do compound questions, but I'm going to do one today. First half, what patterns did you see among attorneys who successfully launched versus those who struggled? And to follow up on Nkoyo's question or statement, what mindset shifts did you see attorneys need to make moving from lawyer to business owner?
Sure. So I'll be a bit of a broken record, but having your mission, vision, values, having a network and support system of people. One of the going at a micro level, one of the things that I see people fail at, or people who are successful do this well, is being on top of billing and paying attention to their finances. Billing is annoying, especially if you're using the billable hour. Because you have to actually track it, and then you actually have to make sure your bills are correct, and then you actually have to send out your bills, and that is a time-intensive process for a lot of people. And knowing how much money you have in the bank and keeping on top of cash flow and knowing what your expenses are and knowing that you're doing trust accounting properly, people get into trouble when they don't pay attention to those things. And so the people who are on top of that, they're better able to pay themselves first. They're better able to know where their client money is. They know how many cases they have and how, and what their trust account actually looks like, so they can actually know what their next month is going to look like and all of that stuff. So being on top of billing and paying attention to finances. The billing one is really important. I see people go months without sending out bills. Which is, it's it's harder to go that long if once you have staff whose job it is to stay on top of that kind of thing. But as a solo, it can be really hard to prioritize that. But you don't get paid unless you do that. Right. And so I actually recommend, especially early on, to think about whether monthly is even enough. If you can bill twice a month or something like that, so that your clients know how much you're billing. In family law, they get surprised at their first bill. So if you can do one sooner than later, sometimes that helps. And it keeps, your cash flow going. So, just making sure that you're staying on top of all the financial stuff. I forgot the second half of your compound.
It's okay. Money is what I took from a lot of that answer there. What are some mindset shifts do you see that attorneys need to make from going from lawyer to business owner?
Sure. So, do you want to? Okay, I'll go. Working on your business rather than in your business. So we're trained as lawyers to work in the business, to put your head down and grind and bill hours or do the brief and and just work as a lawyer. And that's what they teach you in law school. That's what you've done your whole life. If you're a newer attorney, you've just worked in school and you've kept your head down and you've gone to law school and done the same thing. And at your first job at a law firm, you've done the same thing. But once you own a business, you have to work on your business. You have to figure out what, you end up having 2 to-do lists, right? You have what you're doing for client work, and then you have what you're doing for your business work. How am I networking? How am I staying on top of my finances? How am I bringing in more business, doing the marketing and all of that kind of stuff. And so changing that mindset of just doing the work. If you're a person who doesn't like the business side of stuff, like and working on the business, solo practice is probably not for you. So changing that mindset to being actually like not just a technician, but a person working on your business.
Yeah. Thank you. And Koyo, I know you're going to have something to add to that. So you can add to that. And then 2, like nuts and bolts, right? People always want to know, like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Entity structure, trust accounts, malpractice insurance, also, like, they feel very overwhelming to new lawyers. What truly must be in place before taking a first client? Like, what do you have to have, or the bar is going to come get you?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, first I'm going to say the bar is not going to come get you unless you get yourself into some sort of situation where now the bar is aware. We always get people who are like, I started my firm, like, what else do I need to do? And I'm like, you need to go make money and follow the rules. Like, that's what you need to do. So I would say that very first and foremost, if there is anything that, and regardless of what stage of practice you are in, you need to read the rules. The rules are there. There's a great attorney, Kimberly Bennett. I did a lot of work with her. She really helped transform me from moving from like a lawyer to like thinking about running a business. And I was an employee before, so I had a lot of an employee mindset when I came to my practice and didn't realize that I was the one who needed to make all the decisions and the calls. And so I talk a lot about that, of like owning your practice and understanding that every single decision is within your control, and you absolutely need to work on the business. You have 2 roles until you can hire, beyond actually probably 3. One is the marketer and the salesperson until you're really clear about that, but nobody's gonna be able to promote you better than you, so you really gotta get clear on that. You're the one doing the work, you're the lawyer, you're the technician, you have the expertise there, and then you are the business owner, you're the designer of this experience, from everything that goes out, every touch point with your clients, every way that people interact with you, how you're building your brand, how you spend your time, what you focus on, all of those things are in your ambit. And so those are like 3 very different roles, and a lot of times we get stuck in 1 or 2. But you really got to spend that time on the business and looking at how you're building the infrastructure. And a big part of that is the rules. And I really want to highlight on this because, especially when it comes to trust accounting, which is probably the #1 issue that I talk with attorneys about when they get voluntold to come and chat with me, is something was or wasn't in the trust account that should have been. And so Rule 1.15 is your best friend. It's very clear-ish in the legal world, right? Clear as mud around what you need to be doing, what goes into your trust account, what can come out of it, what type of accounting and documentation you need to have. Spoiler alert, your trust account records are like the only ones that are technically required. There's like technically a date, a year, point in time that you have to hold that for the bar. Your malpractice insurance will likely have other requirements for you around record retention. And I highly encourage malpractice insurance. I'm risk averse, as many of us are, and so, you know, if there's ways for me to minimize and manage risk for my license, my ability to continue to practice, then I think it's worth the investment. So I encourage you to look at that. We have a partnership with Member Benefits, Inc., and they have all sorts of insurance, whether that's malpractice, health insurance, a whole bunch of things there. So I would definitely, you can get that on the website as well. Check that out. I think it definitely, if you would tell your clients to insure themselves against the risk, you should tell yourself as your own client to insure yourself against the risk and really kind of look into that. But I definitely think, you know, reading the rules is incredibly important. I've had people come and they're like, well, I thought that I was just supposed to put all the money in my trust account, like everything that I earned. Well, if you're a flat fee and that money is earned upon receipt, then when you put that money in your trust account, now you're commingling. And that's that's not allowed with the rules. So you really want to be clear about what you're doing. Read some of the ethics opinions. How many people are like moving away from the billable hour? There's a few of you back there. I love it.
Good for you.
Like, let's get away from it. I think AI is going to push us. It's really going to push us. So thinking about how you build out flat fees, and there's actually an opinion that comes from the bar around flat fees. And so I would check that out also. Like I mentioned, I ran a legal subscription, and that was my absolute favorite way to practice because I knew that I got paid on a recurring basis every month. It was right into the account, and like you can figure out whether it has to go into your trust account or into your operating account so that you understand what cash flow, et cetera, looks like. But again, through reading the rules, I was able to understand how I could design the thing that I wanted instead of assuming that I couldn't run my practice in a more modern way. I think the question you asked me, though, was like, what do you have to have in place to get started?
Yeah.
You have to have your law license. Let's stay active and like paying our dues and all those things because you don't want anyone looking you up and seeing anything but that nice little thing that says that you're active and in compliance. You need to know who you're going to be working with, what type of work you're planning to do, where those people hang out so that you can market to them effectively. Got to have a bank account. In many cases, if you're billing hourly, in the traditional model, you need to have a trust account. So you want to make sure that that is set up and that it is noted that this is your trust account, that that's on those checks, and that you're putting the right things in there. You need a payment processing system. I was going nuts the other day. My kid's pediatrician asked me to send them a check or my credit card number in the mail. And I was like, it is 2026. Like, where's the link? And so I think figuring out whether you get a standalone something that you're using, like a LawPay, or if you're in the practice management platform, I highly encourage a practice management platform. I think you can create a single source of knowledge. You can do a lot of things in them. Especially get paid quickly. You want to reduce friction there. And so I think those are the big things that you need to have. You need to have a way to get paid, and you need to make sure that money goes into the right account so that you don't get your friends from the bar knocking on your door and asking you to show all of your records around that. And I think it's not a thing that you have to set up, but you really need a process for how, especially if you have a trust account, you are reconciling that so that you make sure you don't end up with an overdraft. I have had the unfortunate instance of having to talk to people whose account overdraft by 2 cents. 2 cents. And that letter goes directly from the bank straight to the bar, and then they're sending you a letter and asking you questions. So if there's anywhere where you are meticulously obsessive, it would be around your trust account. And again, looking at those rules so that you understand what goes in there, how to reconcile it. We have some resources around that here. We have a whole trust accounting booklet in the law practice management program, and we make sure every solo small firm that there is a session on trust accounting, usually led by a CPA, because I don't know how many of you are like me who ran to the law to run away from math.
Yeah.
And yet, when you run a business, it finds you. It just finds you everywhere. So I feel like those are a number of things, and I'll stop right there.
I do want to take a second. Where are we at on time? Okay, well, I'm just going to keep going. You tell me when I need to tighten it up. Okay, back to you, Joanna. I'm going to hop around a little bit here because we've been having a lot of conversations about systems, but right now it's a very theoretical, beautiful thing like systems. What are they? Sure. So can you talk a little bit about some systems that you have put into place or habits that you see make the biggest difference in the first 6 to 12 months, especially for attorneys juggling limited resources?
Sure. So we've mentioned these before, but have a client. I think starting with a client intake process is probably your best place to start, and that's everything from how you want the phones answered. So if you're answering your own phone, that's a little bit easier. But if you have an answering service or somebody else doing it for you, knowing what that client actually hears when they pick up, when they call you, to how you explain your business to somebody and explain your process. So again, if you're doing that yourself, that's one thing. If you're having somebody else do that for you, you may want to have a script for how they answer certain questions. My firm, we have a SharePoint site. I don't know if you have SharePoint, or if you can do it as a Google Doc or a Google website if you use Google products, however it is, that has frequently asked questions, that has the process, that has, we literally have screenshots for how to make payments so that if somebody calls and asks questions, my assistant can lead them through how the payment system works. That's, so that gets you off the ground because the thing that people see first, right, and determine whether they're going to hire you is that kind of intake process. Other processes that are really helpful are going to be your billing process, because you want to, like I said earlier, you want to stay on top of that. Your closeout process, you don't want people to be your clients forever, and so or feel like they can just call you for free advice or things like that. So have a process for how you're going to actually close out your clients. A process for staying in touch with clients. If you're, depending on the area of law that you're practicing, if you're a family law attorney and stuff is happening every week, you may not need formal check-ins, but you may have clients who are super annoying and calling all the time. And so maybe you do want to set up, I have a weekly check-in with clients, or I send out a weekly email, and that can actually both improve your communication so they're not calling the bar saying that you don't communicate with them, but also can reduce your stress because the client will know that you're going to communicate with them at a certain time, and so they don't feel like they have to call you every single day. So it's processes like that. I want to go back a little bit. In the materials that you're going to get, I also put a law firm startup checklist. It is literally 3 pages long. You're not expected to do that in the first month, first 6 months, first year. It's just kind of everything that a law firm can or should think about. And one of the things that's on there is creating your processes. So there are kind of a list of processes that you may want to take a look at.
Thank you. Back to you, Nkoyo. We've talked a lot about some resources that the bar has to offer, but can you give us I don't need full URLs, but some more details on what those state bar community-based resources are that are most underutilized by new solos? For example, I'm an associate attorney at a firm, 4 years old, 3.5 years old now. I don't know about half these programs today. I'm going to run to the office when this is over and say, you need to be reading these. We need to be on top of this. What are those websites that new attorneys or people who are thinking about launching need to be reading and reviewing?
Yeah, so if I could get you to bookmark 2, it would be gabar.org/LPM, and that is the Law Practice Management Program. And like I said, we exist primarily to do this. to make sure that you are running your practice effectively and within the rules of the law. And I will tell you, even my friends over there on the discipline side, like nobody's out here to try to get your license. In fact, it makes all of our lives easier when you are out there running incredible law firms and people are like, oh, those Georgia lawyers are just like astounding. And so I encourage you to use the resources. Like again, so law practice management is there. We also have the ethics helpline. How many people have heard about or used the ethics helpline? Let me tell you, and I tell this to everybody when I do consultations, I used to blow that number up. I call those people all the time. That's actually how I met most of the folks that are over there in discipline, was like calling in and be like, can I do this? Or like, what about this? And what I love about that is like despite the fact that I called a lot of times, they still let me come work over here at the bar. So it is not a punitive thing. Yes, they ask for your bar license, and that's primarily to make sure that you're not a member of the public who's trying to get free legal advice or sort of circumvent different processes. But they don't keep the records of those things. Like they kind of help you think through what the rules of ethics say, try to help you get some parameters so that you can get help before you end up on the other side where they're like, this is, doesn't align with the rules. And so that is there. Again, you can do consultations with our department. We have both technology consultations. So if you're like, I need a practice management software, but I don't even know where to start, Sheila, who's on my team, can help you think through what you're trying to do and figure out what technology might be helpful. I do the general consultations, and so I'm a strategist at heart, and so I like to help people think about what they're trying to do and turn those ideas into actual impact. And so in those situations, we try to help you work through whatever issue is in front of you and provide you with resources to move yourself forward. So that is always available to you. I mentioned we have a vendor directory. We have vendors who love to do business with the State Bar because they want to do business with you. And so if you're looking for new technology, I encourage you to go to the vendor directory and see if there's a discount available to you there. And like I said, we have a resource library. When I was very new, I was kind of incredibly naive, and I actually admire that girl who was like, I can do this, and like jumped out there and was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And there were all these books that I wanted to buy, but I didn't have money, and the bar had those books available. And if we don't have them available and you make a request, our department goes and finds these books and these resources for you. So you don't necessarily have to take out that cost when you're getting started, and funds are, they're making their way to you. That's what I'll say. They haven't yet found you yet, but they're en route. And so that's a really great resource. And again, if you go to the gabar.org/LPM, that you can get a big view of all those things that are there. And then the other website that if I could get you to bookmark it is the gabar.org//AI. And I will tell you, I'm getting a lot more conversations with the court sending folks to us, people finding themselves in trouble, folks calling to be like, opposing counsel used AI, none of these are actual real sites, like all that type of stuff. And so I encourage you to be knowledgeable about the tools that you're using. And so we are building out a resource hub there. Like I mentioned earlier, the ethics things are on there. We're constantly trying to put up new resources there. We're actually doing a survey right now to find out what people are using so that we can make sure that we give you really good tailored advice around how to use those particular tools. But it is here, and it's in just about everything that we're using. And so we want to make sure that you're using it as effectively as possible and staying ahead of the curve, because the future of law is going to demand that we practice a lot differently than we do today.
Okay. I have been told we have 5 minutes left, so I'm going to try and leave them with a heavy hitter here. Many solos are super scared to launch. They want everything to be perfect. 99% of lawyers are all super type A. I need all of this to be in line before I open my door. And I know from seeing a firm launch from the first day that that is simply just not the truth. You don't need to have everything figured out on the first day. It's ideal to have a plan. Knowing that that's what people are thinking leading up to it, what advice do you give someone who is 2 months from starting? They're at a firm that they hate. They want to start their business. It's February. They want to open their doors in May. what advice are both of you telling that person to get started? It might be a system, a mentor. How do you give someone advice on how to start without, let's say, the incubator program alive? Joanna, I'll let you go first. No problem.
I think I would say, one, if you're at a firm or you're, switching out of a experience, just make sure you know the rules and that you leave well. You figure out if clients are going with, do that ethically. There's no reason to burn bridges. Those people might actually end up being clients for you as well, or referral sources. So just really think about how you're leaving that experience. And then my second piece of feedback would be to tell everybody that you know that you're getting ready to start your own firm. Think about how you do that, if your current firm doesn't know that or not, but if they don't know you exist, you don't exist. And it's really hard to get paid if nobody knows you exist. And so you have to really take on the identity of your new firm. That needs to be the thing. I know I'm a mom, so when I had my son, his picture was everywhere. It was on everything. I was like, oh, you want to see my baby? Look, and people didn't ask. I'm like, yeah, I have a mom. Oh, I have a baby, you got to be like that with your firm. It is your baby. And so I really think that being as vocal as possible about what you're building, even if it's coming soon, or getting ready to launch, actually really think about building up energy and connections around that, letting people know as clearly as you can what problem you solve. And I say that rather than saying what your practice area is, because most people don't know, oh, you do commercial litigation? I don't know what that means. What is the problem that you solve for your clients? And being very clear about that so that somebody else can restate it if they hear that coming around. And so that would be my biggest piece of advice. And then, of course, making sure that you have some sort of system to take calls, take money, an engagement letter, please. Let's write things down. Let's be very clear with our clients about what services we are or are not providing for them, so there's no confusion where we end up at FIARB or any other places. And then I think my last thing, so I can let Joanna speak, is just that it's an iterative process. It is never one and done. You will continue to change your practice, your things will evolve, systems will break. That is normal, and not to get stuck on making sure that things are perfect on day one. Just like the law is, we are in the practice of law. Running a business is a journey, and it looks different in different seasons, and so don't get caught up on it having to be one way all the time.
It's definitely building the airplane as you're flying it. And you kind of have, it's a leap of faith that you can do this, but you can do this. I did this less than a year out of law school, and if I could do it,
So brave.
then anybody can, because I think like you, just sure. To get really granular, I think you need to have a business entity. You need to have banking set up. Everybody needs a website nowadays, even if you just get on Squarespace and just throw something up there. You need a phone number. That can be a Google Voice number even, whatever it needs to be. But just on a practical level, those are kind of things you need. Reading the rules is really important for how you're establishing your name, your trust accounting, all of those things. And so reading the rules and then doing that mission, vision, values thinking, at least around what your values are, so that you're not taking cases that are going to destroy your life. Don't take things just because you need the money. If they don't align with your values, you're going to have a much better practice moving forward if you kind of keep those things in mind as you're establishing things, and then setting up those processes and having a way to document as you go. So as you build your retainer agreement, have a place where that goes, have all of these documents in place. If you're leaving somewhere to start your practice, have a conversation with them if you can take some templates with you. I don't condone just stealing things from the firm that you work for, so have that conversation. But if you can get templates, or if you can look at some of the materials, I know in family law there's a whole family law practice manual that comes with a disk, if you still have a disk drive, that you can, download all of the templates and forms and things like that. So having a form bank is really important. Having that network of people that that are willing to share. I'm always willing to share templates with people. That kind of thing are super helpful getting set up as well. But you're going to build all of this over time, and you're not alone. Obviously, in this room, there's a bunch of people here who have been through the same thing that you've been through, and so just finding that network and building as you go you're going to do fine.
And I should say, we have a number of forms. Again, for the business side of things, I think if you're like, I need something very practice specific, I highly encourage you to look into sections. A lot of the sections are putting out a lot of resources, et cetera. And so definitely, I think to kind of take us back to Joanna's earliest point, is like, you do not have to build this alone. I know when I was practicing, I met a lot of friends online. I have a lot of law firm owners that I met online who helped me move my practice forward that I keep in touch with today. And there are a lot of legal communities out there that it's just helpful to see. If you are a Facebook person, I think Lawyer on the Beach has a lot of templates and like processes, et cetera. So you do not have to start from a blank sheet of paper. I actually encourage people to not, that there's something somewhere that you can take and adapt. And sometimes that's easier to do than sitting there thinking about like, well, what exactly should my intake process be like? Like, you're not the first person to do this, and so go get the resources. They are out there, and there's such a supportive community in so many of these bar associations, the state bar, voluntary bars, et cetera, that are literally wanting to help you grow. So don't stay stuck. You don't have to be stuck.
Thank you. Can we give Nkoyo and Joanna some round of applause, please? I'm going to take a second and see if we have any questions. Anyone in here? Don't be scared. I asked like 20, so.
I just have something to add and share with everyone. Something that happened to me recently. I hired an attorney to do some work for me, and going back to the law pay link or whatever you use for like getting paid. So I had, the secretary sends me an email saying, hey, here's the link for the payment, for your retainer. Then 10, 12 minutes later, I get an email from the attorney saying, disregard what my legal assistant said.
Oh.
Please follow this wire instructions, and attach the wire instructions.
Oh.
So it had the name of a Sandra Gomez on it, but it had like her letterhead, everything. Well, it was fraud. Like, you guys have to make sure that whatever systems you use, that you're really like well equipped with that. So, so she, and then I emailed her, the attorney said, hey, Sandra Gomez, because I'm in the legal field and I know like the trust account is usually the name of a law firm.
Right.
And the person replied, yes, Sandra Gomez. But, I had her office address, everything.
Wow.
So then, the other part two of this is, the legal assistant calls me, like, super, like, freaking out, and says, you've been hacked. I'm like, wait, I've been hacked? So it had already happened to them with another client. It was, bam, they got hacked. But it looked so legit, it came from her email.
It's
address.
terrifying.
So just make sure, like, you have good systems in place for IT, because, like, especially with email, and I don't know if you guys know a couple of weeks ago, how, like, emails went down. Like,
some.
just be so careful with that. She luckily had cybersecurity insurance,
Thank God.
and, she filed a claim, but on the other side of this is like, make sure that your legal secretary or your paralegal is comfortable reaching out to you, because thank God I know her and I have a relationship with her, but like, she scared me. Like, you don't want to do that to clients, and it was a good amount of money. It was $10,000.
Yeah, that's how retainers
So I'm
are,
like,
yeah.
what? I got hacked. I'm like, like, make sure that you're paralegal, and she was really nervous, like, oh my goodness, like, she's gonna have an attack. Like, she transferred her panic to me.
Yeah.
And again, luckily I know her, but if it was another client that I didn't have a relationship with her, I'm like, you know what? I don't wanna do business with you.
Yeah.
You know?
And I should have said, cybersecurity is a really big deal for us. Lawyers are low-hanging fruit. Like, we don't do the two-factor or the multi-factor authentication. We're not using strong passwords. We're not doing a lot of the, like, foundational things that make us safer. And so I think having good cybersecurity hygiene is also really important. And we have some resources. We've worked with some cybersecurity firms around what lawyers should be thinking about, what information is out there. I also, just as a point of privilege, email is the most dangerous thing that we are in every single day. And so I really encourage people to get into a practice management software and use a client portal. A lot of these, at least the legal designed ones, are thinking about all of your responsibilities under the rules of ethics. But if you are going to be in your email, please make sure that you're thinking about the security of your email. I bristle a little bit, and this is, some people are gonna say this is like elitist, et cetera, when people are sending me things from like at Gmail, at AOL, at Yahoo, Hotmail, like, I want you to make sure that if you're using a free legal service, like, you wanna make sure that you're getting the level of cybersecurity support that you need to. And so with any tool, generally, my encouragement is that you get into a paid arrangement, and that you're actually using the enterprise or the business side tools and not just what everyday consumers are. Because again, when it's free, you are the product, and we don't know what data they are extracting, and you all are responsible for other people's data and often have a lot of very delicious data for people who want to do nefarious things online. I see a hand there.
Yeah, please.
I have a comment about the email, and then I have a couple of questions. I'm the one that just started.
Yeah, please.
So I looked into Proton Mail, which is free, and their security is actually out of Sweden. And I was able to add my law firm's name, so it's like Melissa@Kramer.law. And it unfortunately, because of their security, it does not integrate with your Outlook or your Gmail calendar. So you do have to like double do things. There is a Proton calendar that you can add to your phone. You actually can't even add Proton Mail to your iPhone's like mail button because they have, their security is so tight they won't let you do anything. To me, it's worth every penny because I do criminal. So when I'm getting discovery and stuff, like, that's where I want it sent. When my client is communicating with me, I don't want it going through a Gmail account. It's fine if the court emails me through a Gmail account, but I don't want anything. And two people actually recommended it to me. The person who is doing my website, and then my partner, because he looked into it for me. And Proton is like the safest, securest email out there. So just a little.
So for the people online, I want to make sure people online can, because this is online too, right? Yeah, so, so somebody was talking about Proton Mail as being a very safe alternative. You may have to do some technology runarounds, but if you're talking to clients, especially in criminal or somewhere that is particularly interesting to people hacking you, then that might be an option. I also think that having an IT person, obviously you don't need to hire somebody full-time, but having somebody who can do a consult for you just to look at your systems and see where breaches might be, having a VPN, so if you're gonna use public Wi-Fi like we're all doing right now, that you might wanna have a layer of protection, that kind of thing. Even courthouse internet is not safe internet, so just be aware of things like that.
And get a privacy screen. I know a lot of you are like working right now, and like the people behind you might be able to read everything that's on your computer. So on all of your devices, laptop, phone, iPad, et cetera, get a privacy screen so that if you're working outside of your office, you know, you don't know if you're sitting on a plane next to opposing counsel or the defendant or whatever. So you just want to make sure that you're just securing your things. But I know you had some questions.
I did, because I am brand new. You mentioned the startup guide I saw online. Is it possible to like get that while I'm here today at the bar? And then I saw like a link for the consultation. Will it, since I've been in here, will it be like with you or will it be with someone else? Like, how does? Because I would be honest, and I mean, again, I'm brand new. Like, the trust fund stuff makes me incredibly nervous. Like, that is my biggest fear.
Yeah, yeah. Click that link. Let's get into a conversation around it. The startup kit, you can get it. There's a digital version, so you can request it and get that emailed to you today. I think this is our last physical copy because I'm going to be very honest. We are phasing out of doing paper. We're going paperless. We tried to in the department. They get annoyed with me. But I'm like, we're going to model what we think are effective practices. And so I don't like paper or email, so I might be biased against it, but, so this is the last one, I can give it to you, or you can get the digital one. And we also try to keep it digital because things change, and so we have updated things, we have put in stuff around virtual law firms, because now that's a thing, we're working on a whole bunch of, so we just try to stay responsive, but you can absolutely get one today.
Did we have any questions on Zoom? No? Any other questions? Okay, yeah. Just want to give them the opportunity. And if it's not been shared, we'll make sure we share everyone's like email information. Everyone that's going to speak today are amazing, wonderful, intellectual people that will give you the mentorship you need. Yes, Karen? Yeah?
When it comes to your first hire, how did you, or did you have
That's a
more
great
than one
question.
person at your firm? What did that look like for you financially before you actually hired that initial person?
Yeah, the next panel, I think, is gonna talk about that more. So you're gonna get all that information. That is definitely a scary time when you're scaling, and so having all those processes and things in place before you hire your person. But they'll talk about that in the next panel.
And I'll just add, like, one thing I want people to think about, and this was a really helpful equation for me, is think about your process and your technology, because sometimes people are hiring because they assume they need to have someone do it when, like, the technology can. And maybe you want someone to do it for a specific reason versus leveraging your technology. And then think about team, because you want to make sure that you're onboarding and bringing people into a process and not into chaos, because then that creates a lot of stress for all of you. And just as an example, you know, like scheduling, like you do not need to hire somebody to do scheduling. There are so many schedulers out there that, like, that is a task that I think nobody needs to be doing anymore. Like, we can use scheduling links, Calendly, Booking, Acuity, Google has one, like everyone has a thing. And so you can really figure out, again, when you've thought about your process and your technology, what you actually need to be hiring someone to do, and really think about who you're hiring, not just like a title, because maybe you don't need a paralegal, maybe you need an online business manager. But I'll let the next panel talk about that.
Great segue. Everyone give our panel